Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson. Sheely, good morning. Good morning. It is Saturday, April 10th, y'all. Can you believe how quickly this year is going by? Let me see where my trusty co-hosts are this morning. Let me see. I think David is here. Let's see where David is. Hey, David. Good morning.
Good morning, Tamara. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome. It's springtime, David. It's a rainy day here in Georgia, though. Gloomy.
I know. Be sunny tomorrow.
Yay! Yay! Well, we were this week we have activists. There's a lot of stuff going on across this country. There's a lot of stuff going on right here in the great state of Georgia. So I think our first guest is here, Mr. Marcus Coleman. We'll bring him into the broadcast. Give me a thumbs up, Mr. Marcus, if you're ready. You ready for us? Can you hear me? Awesome. So we'll bring him into the broadcast and get this party started. Good morning, Marcus Coleman.
Good morning.
Welcome to the broadcast. How are you?
Yes, ma'am. I'm decent. How about yourselves?
Doing good.
Blessed and highly favored.
What did you say, Tamara?
I say I'm blessed and highly favored. Marcus, you a busy man.
Well, for a time such as this, right?
For a time such as this.
We all should be a little more busy than normal.
Yeah, but it's a lot of people sleep, Marcus, and I want to applaud you, Marcus Coleman, for those of you that don't know him. SOS, Save Ourselves, correct, Mr. Marcus Coleman? You've been advocating.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been an activist around these parts of Georgia for a very long time. A lot of people know you. And for those that don't, I'm going to let you tell them who you are, Mr. Marcus Coleman.
Husband, father, advocate, have an organization, Save Ourselves, a human, political, civil rights organization, several concentrations, youth mentorship, through youth athletics and other means, but criminal justice reform. Let me just say Black liberation probably would be the best umbrella to put it under. So many layers to that. And, former president and the founder of National Action Network Atlanta, responsible for the acquisition of the Southeastern Regional Headquarters. But around 2013, that journey went through a metamorphosis of what now is Save Ourselves, and just really understanding my place as a bridge between a younger generation and a more seasoned generation, and to strengthen this intergenerational modern day Reconstruction era movement that we're currently in.
Marcus, give us your website. I'm gonna put your website on the screen so people can follow you, they can support you. They can keep up with your with all that you're doing. I think I first came across you, Marcus, with the Kendrick Johnson case. For those of you that don't know, Kendrick Johnson is the young man who was found in a gym mat, and Marcus has been advocating since the very beginning with this family.
Absolutely. I want to funnel everybody to my Instagram right now. The Instagram is at Marcus T. Coleman. There is a website, marcuscoleman.org, but I'm actually probably going to do some revamping with that in the very near future.
What is your Instagram again? I want to put it on the screen.
Marcus T, the middle initial T, and Coleman, Marcus T. Coleman.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, Robbie.
Morning, I'm sharing too.
Yes, good morning. So you want to tell us about your, like I say, I found you with the Kendrick Johnson family, and I started following you immediately. And just wanted to be on board with where you were with that and what we could do to help you with the efforts for that family.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kendrick's case, I know I was on last time, and I think I had just left a dental appointment, so I was a little brief last time. Kendrick's case is reopened. It's 8+ years after this child's murder. Kendrick, to me, is with no disrespect obviously to any other families, I don't think there's another case in the country currently with the layers that Kendrick Johnson's case has as it relates to the various agencies, department, U.S. attorney's offices that are involved, as it relates to not just him ridiculously labeled as an accidental death as far as his death certificate, because we know that there are 2 additional autopsies that state differently: blunt force trauma, every organ in his body, his tongue and his windpipe, all removed, clothes missing, accelerated decomposition, GBI, FBI. I mean, there's no case like Kendrick's. And it's going to be interesting about this reopening. I mean, we're still in the process of the I'm tongue-tied this morning, with the authentication. Am I saying that correctly? Tongue-tied this morning. Authenticity, excuse me. I'm trying to go. Yeah, excuse me. The authenticity.
It's one of those
of the
days,
tape.
Marcus. I have them all the time.
Yeah, please
I
forgive
hate
me.
when that happens to me.
That's okay. Look, hey, that means it's a lot of busyness, going on upstairs. But yes, that is the stage that we're at, which is crucial. The reason part of the tongue tiedness is because the selling of this tape, and I already, I tried to deal with worst case scenario. If you're ready for worst case scenario, then you're ready for anything. So I'm preparing myself for the individual who sold the tape. He's a fraudster. He's a this. He's a that. Hadn't been said, but through the general public, there's been talk. Well, we've heard the tape. They have heard the tape for weeks now. I don't care if this individual has a record from here to Timbuktu. I don't care if he's a kingpin of fraudsters. We need to know whose voice that is with the things that they are saying associated to the death of Kendrick Johnson. So I'm just kind of preparing your listeners. And again, I'm always worst case scenario, but this guy did commit an act of extortion. And as I told Sheriff Polk, there's an avenue here of him being charged and convicted of extortion, and there being some authenticity to that tape. So again, always preparing for the worst. So we're in a good boat. I mean, we weren't here 2 months ago. People didn't even see the reopening coming. We damn sure didn't see this audio coming. But no matter the audio, there are 17 boxes that are at Lowndes County Sheriff's Department that came from Cleveland U.S. Attorney's Office out of the Northern District of Ohio. We know that the Middle District of Macon, Middle District of Georgia, located in Macon, conducted or opened the investigation originally, conducted a grand jury where they called in several Kendrick's classmates and others. We know that there was a raid on a local FBI agent's home and his 2 sons' dorm rooms, who were listed as the targets for the federal investigation. We know all that sits right now in them 17 boxes. And I'll pause with just saying, Kendrick had 17 short little years on this earth. And it's not happenstance that 17 boxes representing each year of his life are ultimately the reason that the case has now been reopened.
For those people, Marcus, that may not know, what the tape came out obviously out of years later, and what exactly is on the tape?
Say that again. I'm sorry. The tape
You
came out
referenced
years.
the tape, and that people were kind of claiming the legitimacy or illegitimacy of the tape based on the background or the circumstances of how it arose. Well, what is on the tape?
Well, you have a person that appears to be a Caucasian male making comments that would include himself in the death of Kendrick Johnson. I want to make sure we're clear. I haven't released any audio of this tape. We have not released any audio of this tape. We did release a transcript, and I'll be happy. I'll provide one but it basically says they're going to catch me. It says that twice, intro and outro. It's 25 seconds. Kendrick didn't deserve it, and he was young and stupid at the time. You know, again, that's about as far as I'm gonna go with that, because you know that is a crucial piece of the puzzle, you know, that we're waiting on. And again, you know, no matter who this individual is that sold it, you know, there is an avenue where the Johnsons were extorted, but the information received is creditable. So that's where we are right now.
It reminds me a lot of the George Floyd case, where everything that doesn't matter is being scrutinized and released to deflect from the real matter at hand. That, you know, a law enforcement officer stood on someone's neck for 8 minutes and they died. You know, everything that relevant fact that the other officers allowed it, watched it, people videoed it, people commented, there was everything else is coming up. His record, was he on drugs, whatever circumstances somebody has said before, but the relevancy of what actually occurred and what we should focus on. So it's the smoke and mirrors. And when I've listened to the case with Kendrick Johnson, you know, to me, this, as you said, this has been such a clear-cut Georgia good old boy network protecting itself through state agency. How a young man is found dead in a gym mat with organs missing, full of magazine and paper, with his fingernails and fingertips filed down so that you can't see it. And someone actually has the gall to say that he got stuck in a mat looking for a sneaker, and think that his family is just going to forget about him. And I'm grateful, because had they not had someone like you and their attorney, what could they have done when the good old boy network protects itself via agency, blocking real investigations, forcing it to go outside of Georgia, forcing people who already probably have challenges to go out of state to find justice for their son, and delay. And, you know, let's tell the truth about it. Had you not been helping them, what would have happened to these people, and what would have happened to the legacy of Kendrick Johnson? And people, you know, his mother, I was amazed at the level of strength she has, because I don't have children. I have pets. And if someone treated my pet like that, I would have a severe reaction, let alone be able to recover and have the wherewithal to maintain myself and carry on for years after knowing what happened to my son or my child. So when I look at someone like Kendrick's mother, or Monteria, or any mother who's gone through this, I'm grateful that they have advocates who will stand next to them and help them for years along the way while justice is sought.
Well, one correction, major correction. The Johnson's former attorney is part of the reason why they're in this damn mess to begin with. Mm-hmm. You know, and he has been terminated, and new counsel has just recently been retained. So that's another big step. But you know, the Johnsons are in debt over $250,000 because of their former counsel.
Are you allowed to state who it was, or should we just Google?
Yeah, just Google. I mean,
okay.
You know, yeah, I mean, I could easily state it, but I don't even choose to say his name anymore, because you know, for an individual that has a plethora of errors, to put it lightly, but an attorney that allows his clients to meet privately, or should I say more accurately, meet minus counsel at the end of the fact-finding closing of the investigation federally. I mean, the feds manipulated the Johnsons due to the, remember, I just talked about raids of federal agents. I mean, as the young cats say, where they do that at? Like, you feds, when they raid, when they hit you, they've got you. They might try to hit you with an extra 5 charges or whatever speaking, but you're hit. So imagine what they had to, how many times they had to measure before they raided one of their own and his children, to no avail. Or excuse me, to a road to nowhere as far as, you know, with charges. So when the feds closed the case, it was governed by the Department of Justice, specifically the head of the homicide department. And so you had two U.S. attorney's offices and the head of the homicide department, you know, raids, the whole nine, that had, I can't say promised the Johnsons anything. I wouldn't go on record there, but made them feel extremely comfortable enough to exclude me. And I was the one that coordinated the date and time with the two date, time, and location with the two different U.S. attorneys' offices, but also recommended that their counsel not be present. And they met with these heads of the justice system of these yet to be United States. So I was watching the attorney watch me in the lobby as my folks, my clients, but his legal clients were meeting with these individuals. That was 2016. I was through with him then. I don't know what type of attorney, and honestly, I think that's grounds to file some complaints with the bar. Not to mention the fact that the $250,000+ comes from his lack of ability to argue the legal fees and the time associated with these fees from the 15+ attorneys that were representing the 30+ people that were in the initial $100 million lawsuit. So, good riddance, and glad there's new representation.
I appreciate your transparency, especially on this, Marcus, because oftentimes people, you know, the media will see some showcase an incident, you know, just really exploiting it for coverage for their own money-making situation. And people think, oh, you know what, Sue, they'll be fine. They're going to get it. When most people don't realize, a lot of people don't win. You wind up with courts who are very hostile to the public. You wind up with these scenarios where, you know, people are being obstructed at different levels and they're actually being isolated. Why would an attorney want to keep you out? Why would an attorney, I mean, attorneys are usually $300 to $500 an hour. Most people can't afford that. Then you sign, you know, a document like a retainer, or you'll get a contingency, a percentage of, well, if they don't win, you may still be on the hook for that. It's all contractual. And I'm not even sure that the bar actually really governs or has true oversight over attorneys. Because I know tons of people who have had horrible experiences with attorneys and they still practice.
The bar is definitely governing.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I just maybe, you know, the individual's persistence, or I don't know, maybe influence. But I mean, I haven't even gone into the details because, again, it is the way that he conducted himself in this hearing for attorney fees, and that's the result. The result is, you know, the ticket over their head. But I mean, you know, I push back a little bit too on part of the issue is that, you know, there is a higher success rate of in the civil area. You know, a lot of times it is not the equivalent of what happened, but sometimes some folks get more complacent, you know, with the civil. But see, when it gets to the civil, that's when, you know, people like myself, I stay clear. The civil is for the family. That is, you know, that is their monetary retribution that they are definitely owed. But the focus for me is the criminal, and honestly, the changing of the ink in some of these statutes and some of this legislation that we have, because we're going to keep marching, we're going to keep rallying, we're going to keep, you know, having symposiums and forums, and, you know, but you know, qualified immunity, sovereign immunity needs to go. We're seeing, you know, that happening across the nation. But, you know, as it just related to Kendrick, you don't have your name and your city on the desk of the former attorney general saying that this is one of the top 3 domestic priorities, then it disappear. without it being corruption at a very high level. And so that's what we're dealing with Kendrick. And I think the powers that be are extremely shaken because they thought, well, this was buried June 2016, and now it has resurfaced. We got to hope on the same system and the same literally route that it went to begin with, because it started at Lowndes County 8 years ago, and they stamped it, right, as an accident. But literally, there's a new sheriff in town, and Sheriff Polk, he's out front. He's done almost every network and avenue as far as media that I have. I mean, and that says a lot. I'm out here spreading the message about Kendrick, trying to get many eyes and brains and voices on it. And you don't normally find a law enforcement, especially during the height of a reopening of an investigation of a high-profile manner. But he's putting himself out there. I'll pause on this. I say that because there's worry. This case has just been reopened for one's personal gain, for one's personal exposure. Sheriff Ashley Polk would be a man against his word because he told me his word is his bond. So, you know, the fact that he's continuously out in the public on this investigation just means there's more people to hold him accountable for what his decision will be.
Marcus, when you say that your focus is on statutes and changing the law, I'm assuming this is to prevent the same circumstances to fall on other people and they get wrapped in a system that works against them. So recently, you actually had an incident that you experienced that I think you may be trying to improve the system so that other people don't have to go through what you did. Is that fair to say? And do you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So I've seen the video. I follow you. You know, I share your stories just because I really appreciate your work. I am no stranger to law enforcement. I speak from experience. I know what it's like to have trumped up charges. I know what it's like to see people profiled. I know what it's like to see all the people in the same police unit cover up for what's happened. I know what it's like to be railroaded. I know what it's like to have false reports. I know what it's like to go viral. So I don't think people understand that when an officer makes a claim that something has happened or makes a narrative to change what something looks like, that you are costing people their livelihood, their reputation, their clients. When you arrest somebody, they actually may lose their job, and that's how they take care of themselves. So a lot of people may not know what happened with you, obviously you're here. You know, you weren't shot, but you were detained. You were physically, I don't know if you want to talk about it. Why is it that you are taking the stance you are taking with this incident?
How much time we got?
We got about 7 more minutes, Marcus. I know that's a loaded question, Marcus.
Yeah. You know, South Fulton is a new city. We're 4+ years new, not quite 4.5. We actually are the last unincorporated area of Fulton County. Fulton County, the largest county in Georgia. I grew up in this city. My grandparents were the first Black landowners and homeowners in a certain vicinity within the city now known as South Fulton, formerly unincorporated Fulton County. 46 years ago, it was entirely white. 46 years ago, it was extremely racist. Just like other pockets that still exist in Georgia. I give you the makeup back then because now it's 86%. Now that it's a city, 86+% African American, Asiatic, melanated Black folk, and we have an all Black city council, predominantly Black mothers, Black women, Black mayor, Black police chief, several department heads that are Black. They don't like to say that though. They because I got to put the disclaimer now. We govern all people, which is the most silly shit to me to have to say. That's understood. Our government is a makeup of our residents, and going across the country, having had the honor to work with several families, some that are low profile and some that are high profile. You know, when we became this city, I worked with a number of individuals that, you know, kind of talked about the reason why it was important for us to become a city. So even prior to becoming a city, working with folks to become a city, and then just getting very engaged politically, getting very engaged with law enforcement, so much so even helped to champion not criminal justice, police reform here in South Fulton. We're the only city in the entire country that if an officer maims or kills an individual, right or wrong, guilt or innocence, that officer gets, or officers get, alcohol and drug tested. We hear so much about the toxicology report of the victim. We now in South Fulton, we will also know what's in that officer. That's huge. We adopted 21st century policing as law, as legislation. You know, held forums with the police chief. We were truly building this uniqueness, this incubator around a nation that is demanding, you know, some of the same. And so when this happened to me, when this officer, we don't really have a lot of time, but you know, basically, I inquired about a public safety issue for a terrible traffic accident. I felt, I wondered, you know, why was there no one directing traffic when it was a terrible, again, accident at a four-way where people were getting ready to engage in another accident. And he snapped. To make a long story short, I approached him professionally. I gave him the ample amount of distance, not just because of the pandemic, but just my dealings with police officers, give them enough space, the legal amount of space for them to do their duty. And, you know, the brother snapped when I mentioned about, you know, saying something to his superior. He assaulted a brother. He aggravated assault in my book with the illegal use of taser, placing it over my heart without popping the cartridge off so he could legally do a, well, let me rephrase. There's nothing legal at that point in time, but the deployment and placement of taser is totally against policy. And then my Fourth Amendment rights were violated by illegal detention for at least almost 45 minutes. 12 minutes or so after the superior got on the scene, who I called for, actually called for the chief, who he snapped over, which was the reason for his erratic behavior. Coming to find out that this gentleman knew who I was later on with being sent a conversation that he had with a certain individual. He knew who I was and basically wanted to teach me a lesson. You know, I could go on and on about my specific, but as a taxpaying citizen, as one that helped create the city, as one that stood with the police chief, as one that's been on my platforms, you know, speaking about this unity that we have here in South Fulton. It's bogus, it's hypocritical, it's fork-tongued rhetoric. You're not going to stand with me in front of the cameras when and celebrate, you know, community and government and police coming together, and then the minute it hits your damn doorstep, with an individual that has history back from the APD days, with an individual who was facing an indictment during APD for reportedly attempting to hit his ex-wife over the head with some type of stand for a computer. Now, this is what's been reported. You know, that incident happened and he jumps over to the city of South Fulton. He hasn't been here a year, but it appears to be that he comes here because his buddy from APD is now here. And I have to be honest in saying these things because I have vouched for Chief Meadows. Chief Meadows has been around over 20 something years. He didn't need me to vouch for him, but coming out of retirement to be a part of this utopia, as it was put, you know, he's been celebrated as an officer who understands change. He's been quoted as an officer, as a superior who understands change. 3-day suspension, for those of y'all who haven't seen the tape, please look at it. 3-day suspension with de-escalation measures and sensitivity training was what he was handed down. The lying to superior officers in order to justify his actions, we know that they do this all across the country, but I mean, here was just a jewel given to me by way of not just my camera, but his own body cam. his own body cam that was partially obstructed, by the way. And if you see any of the news coverage or go to my page, you'll see it. Just might just cipher through. But partially obstructed because of the reflective traffic vest that officers have to wear for their safety when in situations like this. Well, if you put that vest on, it partially obstructs the view. Well, you mentioned, Robbie, that I'm not shot, and this and that, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but this is one of the vicious tactics that certain people use, and I'm not ignorant to the fact that there's some people that don't like me. I rub people the wrong way. I think there's some people on this call that understand that too, in their own personal every day of walking. But what happened was illegal. What happened was extremely dangerous. Just because the aura, the energy of the ancestors, and I mean some of my closest, who have transitioned, I feel walk with me every day. There's a reason why I stepped out of there with the injuries that I did. It's a reason why I'm not all shot up or broke up. And it's a reason why I'm not bald in the corner on mute. Victims are different. I compartmentalize pain different than others because I've been through a lot of it, and hell, I represent a lot of it. But because I'm able to come out of that situation, control that situation, even though the officer was engaged in a number of illegal activities and tactics, not everybody is going to be that victim that can't speak. So it's a reason why it happened to me. It's a reason why it happened in the city that I helped to create, one of many. And it's a reason why it happened in a city where I'm intertwined in government. It's a teachable moment. South Fulton has an administrative problem, and it shows itself from environmental issues to now police terrorism issues, from infrastructural issues. How much time we got? I know we're out. All I'm trying to say is, starting to see certain people in the city speak up. Citizens talking about bridges that are out in the Cascade area, the most affluent part of the city, for 3+ years, given a reason that heavy rains, unexpected heavy rains, is the cause of a delay for 3 years. Liquor licenses being snatched from places of businesses who do not have any type of demerits, so to speak, warranting the snatching, speaking out with their attorneys. It's a good day in South Fulton because we're right out the gate, but we can't let the people who are just recently placed in positions of so-called power, we can't let them derail all of the work in this new city.
Marcus, you are a friend to this broadcast. We want to continue to, we will continue to follow you. Anything we can do to support you in any of your efforts, you don't hesitate to reach out, because this is what activists do. We stick and we stay in the fight, and I applaud you, brother, for never surrendering, never giving up, and always staying in the battle. Thank you for all you do.
Appreciate you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Marcus. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
David, you've been quiet.
Well, I mean, this is a story that needs to be told. That's and we need to know more about the politics of what's going on. We had a high-profile guy who was on the city council, who represented a certain wing of the political left. I don't know where he is or what he's been doing, around this issue.
Who is this?
I can't remember his name right now. I don't want to mention it because I don't know, anything about, what's
we have our second guest. She's going to pop in just a minute. Tequila Johnson, who is with the Equity Alliance out of Nashville, out of Tennessee. So she'll be joining us in just a second. We're just waiting on her to come into the broadcast. But go ahead, Robbie. What were you going to say?
I just wanted to say one last thing about Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman, and it's not in his personality to do so, but most people, if this would have happened to them, if this would have happened to a younger person, with less position, who didn't know how to compartmentalize, they surely would have lost their job. they would have had a record. If Mr. Coleman had not had 2 cameras, had not had the ability to get the open records request quickly, which most people don't know how to do, they would have been maligned as someone who attacked aggressively an officer and had an arrest that would not have been reversed. And it is obvious that people knew Mr. Coleman, so he is getting treated a certain way to cause the public to understand, don't buck up. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret it. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of policing do we want? Do we want enforcement that we can't ask questions? Do we want enforcement, an officer who literally, a citizen says, hey, that looks dangerous, officer, is somebody going to direct traffic? And you roll up the window on the citizen that's funding that salary? And if an officer would lie, and it is, I've seen the video, I've seen the reports, the officer lied and said that Marcus came at him as an aggressor, which was a lie. The officer's the one going towards Marcus. What on earth about something like this, where no one is shot, no one died, not to minimize it, but what do you think that officer is going to do when actually someone is shot or dies? You think you can trust that officer to tell the truth when they're lying about this? And is it safe to leave that person with that level of authority on the force with a gun, a taser, a vehicle? Is that really what City of South Fulton's doing? And when Marcus says that there's connections between forces, this is a blue wall of silence. And what's confusing people here is that this is a city that has Black leadership. And this is a city that has a Black chief of police. And the officer, Muhammad, I believe his name is, was also Black. But the truth is that when you come after people and you use a system to go after them, it can be Black people that actually are oppressing too. If the system backs them. And that's what's happening here, because Marcus is bucking a system. So they're using people in these positions to stop him from helping families like Kendrick and Monteria and all the other people he's assisting. So sorry, I know I guess it's here.
Hi, Tequila. Good morning. Welcome to our broadcast. You see, we get on our stump around here, girl.
Good morning. I understand what it's like to be on a soapbox, especially when it comes to the people. So kudos, guys.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you to our broadcast. I am Tamara Johnson-Sheely. That's Robbie Caban and Mr. David Slavin. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. where we give voice to issues, activists, and activism all around the great state of Georgia. And you are in Tennessee?
Yes, I am in Tennessee. Actually, right now I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, doing a community canvass for upcoming mayoral election. Chattanooga has a mayor, or is electing a mayor, and Chattanooga is about an hour away from Georgia, hour away. So yeah, I am in Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, and you are with the Equity Alliance. Tell us all about it. I found you in an article and I was like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're doing, but I want to know more. And I read more. And then I was like, I got to reach out and invite you to the broadcast. So share with our viewers the Equity Alliance.
Absolutely. So I am Tequila Johnson. I'm co-founder and co-executive director of the Equity Alliance. The Equity Alliance, we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, and our mission is simply to get more Black people involved in the civic process and keep government honest and in check. And our work happens in a multitude of ways. We do a lot of voter education, voter outreach, voter registration, but we also focus on where voting and economic opportunity kind of intersects. And so what we do is we believe in bringing a voice to everyday people, everyday issues, meeting people where they are, where they live, work, and play, and just really trying to grow our electorate through engaging the rising electorate. That was a
which and it's not an easy task. So I applaud you for your efforts. You know, I fight the same way you fight, but I kind of take a different kind of approach with engaging people, because it just bothers me that sometimes, I think the discouragement with voting and particularly with our people is that they don't see anything. They don't see any real results. So it's like, what am I voting for? I don't care. They don't see any real results. So my approach with trying to engage is from strategically, like, how do we get them to understand this, that voting is a strategy, and in politics is a game, and this is how we play the game to get what we want. Like, how do you have that conversation to help bring? How's the Equity Alliance? How are y'all having that conversation to bring people into the political process?
So we do it in several different ways. One of the things that I like to tell people all the time is that this work has to be about relationship building. You cannot just show up on the doorsteps of people during an election asking them to turn out and vote or register to vote and think that that's going to suffice. People need to, one, know who you are. They need to trust who you are, and they need you to know who they are. And that doesn't happen during the election year. That happens during times like this in the off seasons, where we're doing things like going out to nightclubs and talking to people in nightclubs. We're going to churches. We meet people where they are. One of the things that was most discouraging to me when I stepped into the movement space was there was this super radicalized idea of what it meant to be a Black person fighting for Black people. And that was not me. That was not reflective of me. That was not reflective of my upbringing or my lifestyle. And so what we try to do is not center this notion or this ology or ism, but to center people, actual people, to take the spotlight off of everything that's happening and center the person. And once you do that, you'll realize that people are all open to learning more. They just haven't been engaged in an authentic way where they feel welcome to even express what they don't know. And so one of the things that we do that we've been like probably really, really successful in is we don't serve as the validators for community. We go into the community and we find what I say, those untraditional activists, and we give them a platform. We give them the education and the tools so that they can be self-determining and have the self-agency to speak on behalf of themselves and the people who know them. And so there's this whole like study out there now about micro influencers and how that work happens. But before that was even a word or a thing or a model, we were using that because that's, as Black people, that's how we engage in general, right? And so everything that we do is, like I said, about the Black culture, the Black experience, where we live, work, play, eat, party. We are there.
Robbie?
No, I'm just excited to hear about her work. I also think that activism and advocacy, community advocacy, has to be holistic. And I'm honestly, I don't want to poo-poo on anybody. I'm not trying to poo-poo on Barack or Michelle Obama, but not everybody is going to be Barack and Michelle. You know, not everybody's going to look picture perfect, you know, never have, you know, be smart enough to write a book and reveal that you smoke weed, you know, whatever. Their activists are people, real people. And that's really why we exclude people that we need, people who don't show up to vote, because they feel judged, condemned, you know, not met where they're at. You know, a homeless person can vote just like anybody else as long as they have ID. I mean, so far, I don't know, given what's happening in Georgia. But
right.
To your point, it's about inclusivity, and you have to be aware of the economics, because the economics and the voting system are tied together. And if we don't take care of all of our people, we're going to have problems like we do and need enforcement, or that could be the justification for enforcement. So without people like Tequila doing this work, you know, putting themselves out there, that's not going to happen. You know, and it shouldn't be, and again, this is not a knock, but it shouldn't be just white liberal organizations receiving funding. That's often what happens. You know, the nonprofits and all the monies go to those organizations that never actually reach the real people. And so we allocate funding, and the problems are never solved that we wind up paying for in a different way, we as taxpayers. And kudos to you, because people say knowledge is power, but really knowledge is only power if you're able to actually do something in action with it. You know, you can know about something, but if you don't have the ability to act on it, it's not powerful. And further, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, oftentimes we can spot, you know, we can find the problem, we can find the solution. However, the solution is never going to come out of the mind that originated it. So taking people out of government and not allowing inclusivity, which is what I'm understanding your organization does, an inclusive organization that gives people information and provides access to change, is where we're going to get real solutions that impact all of us. So I see people like Tequila and Marcus as continuing the legacy of MLK, of the late respected Martin Luther King, because he took America's documents and said, America, this is what you're saying you're at. This is what you're doing. And he showed a disparity in theory, what people are claiming and what's actually happening in reality. And to me, that's what Marcus is doing, City of South Fulton. And that's why he's getting the hell he's catching for saying this is what we all planned and came up with together. This is who we say we are. But look what happens in reality. And this is real consequences to people who are not affluent, privileged, or who can't walk around with a little badge that they know an elected official and get out of all the problems, because that's what they do.
Tequila.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that was said. That's essentially why we started the Equity Alliance. I tell people all the time, when I first started this work, I realized that we were treating Black voters like one night stands. We were showing up on their doorsteps the day of, expecting the world. And what we do is court Black voters year round. And that is what sets us apart from every other electoral justice organization or electoral, like you said, super white liberal electoral organization, because they don't connect with our people. They don't know what our life experiences are like. They cannot help us tell our stories or share our experiences in a real way. And those voices have to be centered, and they have to be centered in a way that's authentic and that feels real if we're going to bring about not just change, because it's one thing to change things. And if we look at what's happening right now in Georgia and in Tennessee and all throughout the South, we realize that, the Voting Rights Act changed our trajectory of how we participate in democracy here as Black people. But what happened in 2013 with the Shelby versus Holder, that change was reversed. So we can't just make change. We have to sustain change as well. And if we don't engage people authentically to give them a space in the movement, to give them a place where they can let their voice be heard without feeling incompetent or without feeling like they're doing the wrong things, then we're not going to be able to sustain that change. We're going to get so far, and then when we're expected to hand the ball over, there's not going to be anybody there to hand the ball to. And so we have to really, really, really think about how we treat, especially in 2020. 2020 was what I say a political awakening for a lot of people, especially a lot of Black people who I know who have been content with, working their corporate jobs, having their cushy salary, and not realizing what's happening around and how not only it's affecting other Black people, but how it's impacting them. And so a lot of people's eyes opened during 2020. And what I've been telling people in the movement space is, let's not have this sense of ownership where we feel like we have to condemn people who come into this space that don't know everything. There is a spectrum of woke. Like I look at people as being on this spectrum of how woke they are. And not everybody is all the way over here. Some people are in the middle, and that's okay. Some people are far over here, and that's okay. What we have to focus on is where people are, where we feel comfortable meeting people where they are. If you don't feel comfortable going all the way over here, then stay where you feel comfortable. But in order to really move people to the place where we're going to have radical change, we have to be humble enough, accepting enough, and graceful enough to realize that the years of trauma that have been inflicted upon our people have caused us to see ourselves as our own enemy. And we have the one oppressor. We cannot condemn each other for how we do this work. We cannot condemn each other for where we are politically. We have to realize that we're all at different places. And in order for us to have radical change in this country, we're going to have to be graceful enough to move each other along slowly and from where we are. And so that's kind of been my thing. My biggest gripe in 2020 and 2021 is I've seen a lot of great people in the movement space just being dragged, like just being, by other movement people, because now the spotlight is on the movement. Mm-hmm. The spotlight is on Georgia and what Stacey Abrams and Insay and all the people down there have been doing for the last decade. The spotlight is on Black Lives Matter. The spotlight is on. And one thing that happens when that spotlight comes on, it gets hot. And when it gets hot, people start to have to remove the mask to come up for air. And people start to put on a mask to shield from the heat. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everybody. But I think during times like this, it's a good thing because it gives us the opportunity to really self-reflect. But then it also gives us the opportunity to capture more people. There are a lot of people that are talking about movement work that have never traditionally been involved in it. Corporate people, people like that. And it is not the time to, yes, you can hold people accountable without completely pushing them away to where they feel like they can't be a part. If we're going to move, if we're going to build a movement, we need as many people as possible. And we need to realize that we have but one oppressor. And it ain't nobody on this call. And it ain't nobody that's doing any kind of movement work. It's majority of the time we know who that person is. And if we just focus on them, the shortcomings of everybody around us won't even matter, because that oppressor is so big that it's going to take all of us.
Yeah, I totally applaud you, because I know this kind of work it's a walk and it's a journey. And we're just doing our part in these times. I don't think that, we don't see the end. I don't know where the end is. I just know that we're in the midst of, this is our time to just continue to do the work of our ancestors. This is work being done before us. The baton has been passed. Now it's our time to definitely continue. You talk about the courtship. Before we let you go, tell us what that courtship is like, courting Black voters. You can't just walk into a Black space and say, vote. That is just not how it works.
Because our ancestors not know. So one of the things that you talk, um the woman before you mentioned the funders and the fundraising space, and that's a real thing in this space, because funders are oftentimes looking for a deliverable. They're looking for objectives, and they're looking for goals, and they're looking for a plan that you're going to say, I'm going to take this money and this money is going to transform into X. And what I've been telling them is there are some things that have to happen before we can even talk about goals and deliverables. We don't believe in attaching people to this notion of a voter ID in the voter file, and we dang on for sure don't believe in attaching a dollar amount to a person, or to change. And so one of the ways that we do that is we don't just go to people and talk about voting. You know what I mean? Because people are hurting. People are waking up. They're not able to feed their children. People don't have health care. The police are running amok. Like, things are bad. And so what we realized is this old notion of separating out direct service, advocacy, and organizing, where one group focuses on direct service, one group focuses on advocacy, this group focuses on organizing, this group focuses on electoral justice. We can no longer do that. We have to be everywhere for our people. We have to holistically love and engage our people. So when you need a food box, we're here connecting you to food box resources. When you need, you know what I'm saying, someone to go advocate for your child at the school, we're out here connecting you to lawyers to do that. When it comes time to vote, and those issues that we helped you with earlier on during the year are on the ballot, we're making sure that you know where the candidates stand on that through education as well. And we're going to remind you through text message, phone bank, door knocks, or whatever we need to do to get to the polls. So it's less of like, how do we engage people year round around voting, and more of how do we love on people holistically year round, and make sure that they realize through that love, through that centering of their experiences, how voting, how politics, how electoral justice, how all these things play into the issues that they may have or may have not experienced. And that works better. We are, people say Black people are issue voters. I don't necessarily believe that. I think Black people are relational voters. I think Black people vote based off of how someone makes them feel, and based off of how well they can trust somebody. And Black people aren't just easily swayed. We've experienced too much in this country for you to just come on TV and be like, "Oh, Trump's bad, vote for me." That's not enough for Black people. What we have to have is people in our community who we see every day, who we work with every day, connecting with us in an authentic way, explaining and educating us on how this vote can impact what's happening in our community, and making sure that we realize that it's a journey. Like you said, it's not something that we're not going to go to the polls and vote and then tomorrow we're going to eradicate child hunger. It doesn't happen like that. It is a process. It is a game. And like any game, you keep playing it until you get what you want. And 9 times out of 10, you probably don't win. You keep playing so that you can just get some relief. Unfortunately, that is the system that we live in. But we have not done a great job at making sure that that system understands how Black people live within that system, if that makes sense. We water down our messaging. We change the way we dress. We change our hair. We change the affect in our voice. We code switch. We get on CNN, and we're no longer talking about the lifestyle things that we do as Black people, but we're kind of adjusting to what white people in those spaces say we should be talking about. No, we're not doing that anymore. We're no longer folding, bending, watering ourselves down to be more acceptable or to make white people more comfortable or to make anybody more comfortable. We are just as much a part of this system, just as much a part of democracy as anybody else. And we take that serious.
David, when you want to give her one final question before we close out.
Well, I'm hearing a lot. I'd like to know more about what's specifically going on in Chattanooga, how you're working there. More of the specific issues that you're addressing over the course of this time. How you're bringing together the generations and people.
That's a loaded question, David. Let her answer that. You asked her 10 questions in one.
Yeah, I heard how do we intergenerational?
She actually answered it. She said that they are meeting people where they're at. Where if people need a food box, they're bringing them a food box. If people need help for whatever the situation is, that's what they're there for. And they're establishing relationships, not only when it's time to vote. I completely relate. All those people that showed up at my door when it was time to vote here in Atlanta that I videoed that knew nothing about what was happening in my neighborhood. And I completely understand what you're saying. When I saw, a power structure with funders here in Atlanta, we've got, this NPU system that recognizes neighborhood associations who charge monetary dues for people to vote. And that agenda goes to planning, and it's killing the city. There's no common areas that these HOAs manage. And they have literally created, on top of what we have already, an affordable housing crisis that we are all going to pay millions for. So it's a detrimental system. And when I'm listening to Tequila and she's talking about non-judgment and meeting people where they're at, let me tell you, it's the woke people have the Black Matter signs in their yard who run those associations. They have the neighborhood association signs, and they're the same people denying people the right to vote based on money in distressed areas that they're only able to afford, with predatory housing practice being allowed.
We're gonna put that word woke in quotation marks. Woke. Those woke people that you're talking about, we really don't know how woke they really are. Tequila, I want to thank you for joining us on this broadcast today. I know you are out doing some heavy lifting out in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I want to applaud you for the work that you're doing. You are a friend to this broadcast. Please come back, keep us engaged, and inform anything you want us to spread the word on. Don't hesitate. Please come back and spread the word with us.
All righty. You guys enjoy Saturday. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tequila.
Thank you for your work. A lot of people don't realize advocacy. Well, you do, Tamara, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, David, but it can be toxic. It can be hostile. It can drag you if you are not able to do what Marcus described and compartmentalized. People will come after you for speaking up and exposing things. They'll damage your business. They'll report agency on you. They will try to trump and literally try to ruin you.
And that's why, Robbie, and when you're doing this kind of work, you really have to be your own man. You got to be your own woman. You got to be your own person. You got to have your own thing, because this kind of work, it could be very detrimental. It could be detrimental, like you say, in so many ways. Cost you your career. It's a price to pay when you do this kind of work. So when you see activists like Tequila out here on the front lines, go to their website, make a donation, theequityalliance.org. Go to the website, make a donation, because those people, they have to do this work for us, because everybody can't do this. So we need people like Tequila on the front line. Here's Marcus. Go to Marcus's Instagram, DM him, ask him, brother, what can we do to help you? What can we do to support you? Because everybody can't get on the front lines. And when people put their lives into this, trust me, it costs you something. It costs. And I feel that, Robbie. I feel it.
No, they do. People come after your business. They come after your character, talk about stuff they don't know anything about. Literally, I've seen it. I've experienced it. And that's exactly where I was going. If you can't support, which I understand, not everybody has the finances to do that. And I would never ask anyone to put themselves in a bad spot but share Share the videos, share the accounts, like their posts, follow them, share their stories, and let other people know what's happening, and share it in a public setting. Please don't share it just with your friends and where other people share it and then people don't even know what's happening. So I shout out to Tequila, shout out to Marcus. I'm glad you covered them. And I shared already this video. I put it everywhere. I probably got blocked somewhere because of it, but it is cool.
Yeah. Like I say, those of us that get on the front line and do this work, we need your support. We need your support. This kind of untraditional media, this is the stuff we bring you, the things that we know, the people that are out here doing the real work. We will never get on CNN and Fox and all these. We won't get in those high media spaces. We won't. So you have to support us. So that's why we do this. David and I and Robbie, we're 2.5 years, almost 3 years into this. Every Saturday we here bringing you as much as we can, giving you great information. I do Keeping Up with Congress Monday through Thursday, helping people to stay engaged with what's happening in politics in the U.S. House and in the U.S. Senate. We're doing the real work. And as a matter of fact, let me share my screen before we head out. I'm gonna show you. We're doing the work. HB 541. HB 541, y'all. Are you a descendant of slavery in Georgia? This is a bill that is in Georgia's current legislature right here, right now. Georgia's current legislature that is addressing those who are descendants of slavery here in Georgia. I'm going on the road around Georgia, y'all, advocating and helping to working to get this bill passed in our next legislature. This is where we do the work. Go to the website, hb541.net. Donate and help. This is the real work. This is the real work. Robbie, I appreciate you for, being in the fight, because I know what this costs. David, you want to give us some parting words as we head out?
I think a lot of what Tequila was emphasizing was relationship building, and I think that goes not just for the external work of an organization like hers, but also the internal work of building trust and connectivity among the people who are doing the work, because as you are saying, it's as both of you are saying, being out there and up front is hard. It's there's a lot of vulnerability, and the people around you who give you the support that you need, are essential to that. Solidarity begins, kind of within the political process itself, and treating people, with trust and respect starts within the political organization itself. So I think you learn how to do those things from those building those relationships. You learn how to build relationships outside by the way that you build your relationships inside a group. So.
Yeah. All right. You can find us right here. We do this, y'all, every week, every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here. You can find Ms. Robbie Caban at robbiecaban.com. You can find Mr. David Slavin right here on Facebook at Acknowledge the Divide. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. You can find me at tamarashealy.com. And every week we give voice to issues, activists, and activism right here in the great state of Georgia. Support this broadcast, tamaraforgeorgia.com. You can cash app it, the Tamara for Georgia. Like I said, I'm hitting the road next week to go around the state. We're going to be talking about HB 541. We're going to be collecting the stories, and we're going to have receipts in these political streets. I want to thank you for joining us this week. We will see you next Saturday right here. Y'all have a great week, everybody.